everybody. I am Luann Rosenzweig from Kahal Kadosh Beth Elohim, and it's certainly a thrill to be standing here in person to welcome you to our 10th annual rally. Woo-hoo. Woo! This rally sets us up for our Nehemiah action, and to make sure our action is successful, we need lots of help. If you're able to volunteer at the action on April 4th, please see Rainique. She's over. Are you over there, Rainique? Right there. See Rainique and sign up. CAJM is also supported by many local businesses who invest in our work. All our corporate partners are listed in your agenda, so please check them out and support them whenever you are able. CAJM is also supported by many individuals and by congregations paying dues. We are working towards all of our congregations paying 1% of their operating budget as dues. And right now, we have 6 congregations that are doing that. These congregations are Circular Congregational, Majid Al-Jami Ar-Rashid, Solid Rock Christian Fellowship, St. John Catholic, St. Patrick Catholic, and the Unitarian Church in Charleston. Let's give them a big round of applause. Now, I'd also like to draw your attention to information in your agenda, as well as it's going to be up on the screen at various points. Everyone here tonight, whether in person or online, needs to check in so that we know that you are present. You can check in through the web address, by scanning the QR code, or by calling the number provided and leaving a voicemail. Do it now to get counted as we join together to do justice. Think about those last 2 words I said, do justice. To do justice requires an action on our part. We cannot just sit idly by as our neighbors suffer and expect things to improve. We need to act. Rabbi Joshua Heschel spoke about doing justice as a type of prayer. When marching with Martin Luther King, he said, "For many of us, the march from Selma to Montgomery was about protest and prayer. Legs are not lips, and walking is not kneeling. And yet, our legs uttered songs. Even without words, our march was worship. I felt my legs were praying." So, like Rabbi Heschel and Reverend King, let's do some praying with our legs as we walk, run, drive, carpool, bus, or Uber to the action on April 4th to do justice. To set us up for our justice work this evening, I'd like to share an adaptation of a prayer written by Rabbi Jack Reamer. Let us pray. To the one who instructs us to pursue justice, we know we cannot merely pray to end war, for we know the world was made in a way that people must find their own path to peace within themselves and with their neighbors. We know we cannot merely pray to end starvation, for we already have the resources with which to feed the entire world, if only we would use them wisely. We know we cannot merely pray to root out prejudice, for we already have eyes with which to see the good in all people, if only we would use them rightly. We cannot merely pray to end disease, for we already have great minds with which to search out cures and healing, if only we would use them constructively. We know we cannot merely pray to end despair, for we already have the power to clear away slums and to give hope, if only we would use our power justly. Therefore, we pray instead for strength, determination, and willpower to do, to show up instead of just pray, to become instead of merely to wish, that our world may know justice and that our lives may be blessed. Amen.
Good evening. To our Cajun community, it is great to welcome you back to Mount Moriah. I stand tonight to remind us of our cause, our modus operandi. This year, there's been a slogan put together to truncate it, to format it into a simple phrase, a phrase that you see on t-shirts all around that just simply says, do right. These two words put together serve as a clarion call to all of our congregations, network members, and surrounding communities. It is an appeal and reminder to us, and also a charge to those with the privilege and who have been privileged with the position of civic power and responsibility. Those who are making key decisions for the masses that will make an impact for many generations to come. Do right is our mandate. Command is our obligation. But before we proceed further engaging in this theme and chanting it throughout these hallowed walls, I feel it necessary to address what I feel may be a little problem with our theme. I feel that it can be misinterpreted. It may only be two words, but those two words may not mean what they're supposed to mean. Well, not so much the first word, do, as Luann articulated so eloquently. That just connotes action and movement. It literally means to perform. You can't really misinterpret do. But that second word, right. Right can be misunderstood. For instance, for some in medicine or housing, right may be interpreted to mean monetary profits should be prioritized over and above access to health care and affordable living. But I came by tonight to tell you that ain't right. There are others who define right as needlessly contributing to the hurt of our beautiful planet in the name of progress and modernization. As Counting Crows and Joni Mitchell would say, they paid paradise and put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hotspot. While floodwaters only get worse, and the people who have lived in those lands for so many generations watch their legacy stripped away from their grasp. But I want to let you know tonight, that ain't right. Some interpret right to mean that you can take your military and waltz into a sovereign nation that you claim as your own, and through devastation, bloodshed, aggression, lies, and deceit, push people out of their native land, kill the innocent, and create instability throughout the world. But I have to inform you that what is happening to our brothers and sisters in the Ukraine ain't right. So, well, Rev, what is right? Well, I'm glad you asked me. Right for us means that we aspire, plan, pray, and work to create a community where justice and equity prevail. It means that we persist until this vision becomes our reality. It means that we don't give up because of roadblocks, setbacks, disagreements, discouragement, missteps, or a lack of progress. Do right for us is detailed out within the pericope found in Micah 6:8, which says, "He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to seek love, kindness, and to walk humbly with your God." Do right means that we may be culturally, economically, geographically, and even religiously different, but that we align and come together in the name of doing right. And so tonight, when you hear somebody from this platform call out and say, "Do," if you are in agreement with our mission and what it means to live it out, then I encourage you to respond emphatically, vocally, or in the chat section with the word right. Let me hear that. Do. Right. Do. Right. If you believe in equity and have hope for a more just tomorrow, do. Right. If you believe in our collective power and that we can truly change this world, do. Right. Until justice rolls down like waters, do. Right. Until righteousness flows like an ever-flowing stream, do. Right. We must embody it within ourselves and demand it throughout this nation and throughout the Low Country, do. Right. By doing right, we will see the creation of the community that we long for, where justice and equity prevail. Do. Right. Amen.
Hello, I am the Reverend Dr. Brian Henderson. I am a member of CAJM's Education Steering Committee and the pastor of St. James Presbyterian Church on the lovely James Island. 8 years ago, in house meetings all across the city, we shared stories about our kids being removed from the classroom by suspensions and arrests. 8 years ago, we shared stories about the innumerous number of Black and brown children missing classroom time because of those suspensions and those arrests. 8 years ago, we had conversations about how students of color were falling behind, further behind in school because of lack of attendance due to suspensions and arrest. And in response to these findings, for the last 8 years, we've pressed the Charleston County School District to be a safe and equitable place for all students. However, 8 years and 3 superintendents later, the district still has no written plan for implementing the best practices that we shared with them 8 years ago. We've heard 8 years of promises to do better, but we have experienced in response 8 years of poor implementation, 8 years of failing to commit to making real and lasting change, and 8 years of unnecessarily suspending and arresting Black and brown children. In Charleston County, Black and brown children are being suspended at rates 9.7 times higher than their white peers and being arrested almost 8 times more often. It's been 8 years and these numbers have yet to change. 39% of our Black and brown students in Charleston County School District were suspended at least once. That's 6,463 of the district's 16,786 Black students. 6,463 students missing class time, 6,463 students missing socialization time, 6,463 students being punished with no real plan for reconciliation. That's enough students to fill the District 4 stadium. This problem has deep roots, a lack of relationship, racial bias against black and brown communities, a lack of communication, and a lack of accountability. Now, we know that the district has the tools and the money and the power to make change and do what's right. Over the last 2 years in our work with the district, we've seen glimpses of what restorative practices can do in our schools and communities if implemented properly with the right support and necessary assistance. It's time to do right. We have to do right. Now is the time to make lasting change. Let's do right.
Laughter, conversation, music, and positive energy. Those are the qualities that I would use to describe my classroom, though this has not always been the atmosphere. I've been a teacher at Northwoods Middle School, a Title I school right here in North Charleston, right down the street, for 11 years now. We've gone from an A+ rating in 2011 to unfortunately having the highest number of fights in the state for a few years later. Since adding restorative practices, I have seen a drastic and significant decrease in major referrals and suspensions for sure. Restorative practices have brought about a change in my classroom and my perspective of Northwoods during the years that it was implemented school-wide. During the most troubled years of Northwoods Middle School, our highest suspension rates, inconsistency was at the heart of that problem. Students were not being held accountable for their actions, and teachers felt unsupported, as if their hands were tied by unchanging student behaviors. Then, one summer, Northwoods got a new principal. Dr. Knauer required all faculty, everyone in the entire building, to attend a 2-day training in restorative practices and classroom circles. That year, every single adult in the building began using the same language for redirecting behaviors and holding circles weekly in the classroom to address school and social emotional needs. Issues were discussed on a peer-to-peer basis. If I'm honest, the beginning of that school year was different from the previous years. Restorative practices have by far been the most influential in that change. Getting children to open up and participate in circles, it took a few tries, but eventually students got to a point where they would even ask to hold circles meetings on their own. They wanted to handle the problems by themselves in the classroom. Restorative practices build metacognition related to behavior and why students might react a certain way. The affective statements help students form empathy for their classmates and their teachers, and vice versa. Student surveys at the end of the year reflected the increased feeling of safety and enjoyment in attending school. Since incorporating restorative practices into my classroom, I very rarely write office referrals. Most issues that arise are handled by redirecting with the affirmative questions, and large-scale classroom issues are handled with restorative circles. Unfortunately, due to a change in leadership and high teacher turnover and a lack of supportive measures in place, restorative practices are no longer being implemented with fidelity school-wide. Once again, I'm seeing an increase in aggressive behaviors and referrals. Additionally, the student surveys are reflecting an increase in feelings of unhappiness with attending Northwoods. My team of teachers still use the practice, and our 85 students still very rarely receive any office managed referrals and therefore have very little suspensions. Our group represents a small portion of the school population. What of the other students? My wish for Northwoods would be to develop a method of training and developing teachers and staff in restorative practices in all areas once again, this time with support to help make the practices sustainable. I also wish the school could expand on the use of restorative practices to incorporate a community circle of stakeholders that would build effective supports that address changes like the ones encountered in Northwoods. I feel that community engagement, partnered with best practices, will finally shift the culture of our school. I completely support restorative practices in every school and hope that CCSD supports the implementation of it into every classroom and every school.
Good evening. I'm Jared Hove. I'm a member of Circular Congregational Church and KGM's Education Steering Committee. I'm a parent of a CCSD student. To learn, our brain asks, am I safe? Am I loved? And only then am I learning. When we think about schools, we think about students learning. But I mentioned these three questions in this order because neuroscience tells us that our brains cannot successfully engage in the executive functioning skills, those necessary for learning to read or performing the quadratic equation, if we don't feel safe, if we don't feel loved. We just heard from some amazing folks about the urgent need for restorative practices in our schools. The difficulties of the last few years have only heightened the need. So what are restorative practices and how they help? In short, restorative practices are a tool to help us do right by students. They were developed to build and strengthen the relationships that are essential for good learning. They proactively build social connections that foster well-being. They focus on repairing relationships in cases of wrongdoing. Traditional punitive approaches to school discipline, and I quote, pushes kids, disproportionately students of color and low-income students, out of their classroom and school community, end quote. This is from the nonprofit Next Generation Learning, and as we've seen, it's true for over 6,000 students in Charleston. As Pastor Henderson noted, 8 years ago, we started advocating for RP to address these issues. One piece of good news is that hundreds of teachers have been trained. Another is that we've engaged in dialogue with the International Institute for Restorative Practices and CCSD. The challenge is that the disparity in suspension persists for Black and brown students. Frayed relationships persist. So we need to persist too. Coming out of a stakeholder summit with the IIRP, CCSD, and CAJM, there are clearly communicated next steps. They include assessing capacity for building and implementation of RP, creating a 2 to 3 year district-wide implementation plan and starting to implement the plan in districts 2 and 4 now. We're asking CCSD to do right by the community on April 4th at the Nehemiah Action. We will stand in front of 2,700 folks in a CCSD stadium to urge the district to do right. Let's do right by our teachers and school leaders. Let's give them the tools and support to implement RP. For our educators, let's do right. For the parents that want their children to feel included and supported in schools, let's do right. And for every child who shows up each day to school with the potential to learn and to grow, let's do right. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shade. I am one of the thousands of young adults in the Charleston area struggling to find housing that is affordable. It's hard to believe that we started our housing work in 2017 when I was in high school. We learned back then that in our region we need 2,600 affordable homes built for families every year just to keep up. Here we are 5 years later, 5 county budgets later, totaling over $1 billion. Ask me, how many homes did the county build in the past 5 years? None. Zero. Not one single home. Tonight we gather yet again to call on our officials to do right.
Good evening. My name is Irea. I am one of the thousands of child care workers in Charleston County struggling to find housing that is affordable. What does it take for our officials to feel the tension we feel with rising housing costs? Our county council received $80 million in funding they weren't expecting from the federal government to help address community concerns. Ask me, how many homes did they build with that $80 million for families? None, nada, zilch. Tonight we gather again to call on our officials to do right.
Good evening. My name is Maya. I am one of the thousands of food and bev workers in Charleston County struggling to find housing that is affordable. Just a few weeks ago, our county council voted to spend $3 million to establish a Department of Community Revitalization and Housing Affordability. Ask me, how many did they build from $3 million? 0. Tonight we gather again to call our officials to do right.
Hi, I'm Sonia Jones, Program Compliance Administrator with Charleston County School District. We see families on a weekly basis who are displaced due to evictions and are facing housing insecurities. The impact of not having a stable home is very concerning. Not knowing where you're going to sleep from one night to the next can be very detrimental to a child's social, emotional, and academic learning. We see families who may be in a hotel one night and then the next week they'll double up with another family member. When children are experiencing unstable home life, they miss out on having their own, because as they travel, they have to take their belongings with them. And oftentimes they lose what they have. They lose school supplies, they lose clothing, they lose documents. Not being around their peers and staying from one location to another, they don't get to develop those friendships that they would normally have living in a stable home. Children don't get to have the opportunity to invite their friends over, to have play dates and to have other activities, because they're constantly moving from one area to the other. Oftentimes when displaced students come to school, they come already tired from the night before, because when you're doubled up with another family member, you don't know that if that child may have had to sleep on the floor that night, or had to get up extra early, or went to bed extremely late. And so oftentimes they come to school tired and not prepared academically to learn. When displaced students don't have a choice but to move around often, it does impact their behavior. It impacts the way they learn, because they're internalizing a lot of what they're going through on a daily basis, but they're having to put the best on the outside. And sometimes it's that hidden aggression sometimes, or it could be the opposite way. They shut down because of what they're dealing with on a daily basis. Parents have the option to either keep their student enrolled in their zone school or the school that they are currently zoned to attend because of a move. And oftentimes parents would like to keep their students enrolled in the zone school, and if that is the case, the district will provide bus transportation back to the zone school. Many times the distance between where the family is currently living could be anywhere between 5 to 20 miles away from the zone school. But the district tries its best to accommodate the family and ensure that the student can remain enrolled in the zone school. When the parent opts to keep their child in the zone school and the district provides bus transportation, it could be a week later, a month later, that family has moved again. And so students are moving from one area in the county to another area in the county. And each time that student moves, we're trying to ensure that student can receive bus transportation back to their zone school. And so what we see on a daily basis is a number of displaced students moving from one location to the area, trying to get back to their home school. Charleston is vastly becoming an area where only those who have means can afford to live. What we're experiencing is a vastly increasing population by families moving into the area from other states. We see pricey condominiums and apartments popping up throughout downtown Charleston, well into the North Charleston area. And those apartments prices are astronomical. And the families that we serve, there's no way that they can afford those apartments or condominiums. Displaced students are 6 to 12 months academically behind housed students. The program that serves displaced students is the McKinney-Vento Act, And the district receives a competitive grant every 3 years to provide school clothing, school supplies, hygiene products for our displaced students. However, it does not cover assistance with rent, utilities, or help to pay hotel costs. Because I can't use federal dollars to pay for apartments and rent and utilities, we seek donations from outside agencies to help families, but not only homeless families. It could be a family just in need. Like one year we had a student who passed away, and the family did not have, insurance to cover the expenses. And that particular year we had funds in that account, and so we assisted the family. Oftentimes I receive a call on the weekend saying that, we met a family on the street corner with children and they have no place to go. How can you help this family? And so we've tapped into the Children in Crisis Fund to provide a hotel stay for a night or two until the family or some type of agency can assist the family with other means of shelter. If the county were to build affordable homes and provide stability for the families, it would change their lives tremendously.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Agbor-Tabby, and I'm a member of St. James Presbyterian Church on the lovely James Island. Did you hear what our young people shared just a few moments ago? Did you hear the stories shared by Ms. Sonia about children who are homeless? Did you hear how much money County Council has had at their fingertips to address this crisis? Yet, $0 have been allocated since 2017, when we first started calling for an affordable housing trust fund to be funded by our tax dollars. We needed a total of 13,000 affordable homes built. Now ask me, how many homes did they build? None. So if I had failed this miserably in my job, I would be out of a job. Okay? We call on County Council to do right. That's it. First, we asked them to adopt the ordinance establishing the Housing Trust Fund. Second, fund the trust fund with the remaining ARPA dollars. Fund it in the county budget and fund it through a referendum in the fall. We're so behind in the homes that we need. Our county's main funding focus should be ensuring working families have housing they can afford. Do right. Tomorrow night, County Council meets at 6:30 at 4045 Bridgeview Drive. Please join us in support of our speakers as we continue to press our officials to fund the Housing Trust Fund. If you are available to attend, we ask you to arrive at 5:45 p.m. Your presence is felt when you show up. Please stand if you will be present at County Council tomorrow night, or drop it in the chat if you're on YouTube, if you will attend. I'm standing. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rolanda Donald, and I am a team leader from Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church. I also serve on the Healthcare Steering Committee. The pandemic has taught us that none of us can take access to health care for granted. I guarantee you that all of us in this room have had at least one frustrating experience navigating our overwhelmed healthcare system over these past 2 years. Maybe you couldn't get a COVID test, or maybe you had to wait weeks or even months for an important medical procedure. How did that experience feel to you? Angry? Exhausted? Resigned? Many of us have been lucky enough to experience this struggle to get basic health care for the first time during COVID. But for thousands in our community, these kinds of struggles have been their reality for a long time now. For the people who are uninsured, who do not have transportation, who do not have childcare, who work long hours, the list goes on. Just getting to the doctor for a checkup has been at least as difficult as it's been to find a COVID test during the worst hours of this pandemic. Is that right? No. It's time for our public officials to do right and make access to primary health care a priority.
My name is Aretha Polite Powers. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Better Healthcare Network. We are a federally qualified healthcare center here in Charleston, Berkeley, Dorchester, and Colleton County. We serve 20,000 individuals with about 70,000 medical visits.
I was enjoying Dr. Powers' presentation. I was prepared to stand here and listen to it. Good evening. My name is Stephanie Pope Singleton. I am a network member of Charity Missionary Baptist Church. I am also a Healthcare Steering Committee member. Our ask this year remains the same. We want MUSC to fund
My name is
mobile health
Aretha
units.
Polite Powers. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Better Healthcare Network. We are a federally qualified healthcare center here in Charleston, Berkeley, Dorchester, and Colleton County. We serve 20,000 individuals with about 70,000 medical visits. We also have dental, behavioral health, pharmacy services. So if you're in need of a provider, come out. For a couple of years, I was having some issues with my iron, very iron deficient, and I just didn't feel like my provider was listening to me. And so I tell this part of the story because I often feel like individuals who come to our mobile clinics, they feel like people are not listening to them. I do not feel like my medical provider was really paying attention to the symptoms or things that I was experiencing. And so I really try to emphasize with our medical providers to pay attention, to listen. Because if we can't identify with our medical provider, we're not going to come back to care. We're not going to pick up the prescription, and we're not going to follow up on the referrals. And in the end, the entire healthcare community and the patient loses. If you have a mom who has 3 children and she has to bring them to her appointment, have crayons and coloring books available and have staff available to assist her. Do not make her feel like it's a burden because she's trying to take care of herself, because in the end, if she doesn't, she can't take care of her children. If individuals are late because public transportation's running late, make an exception and allow them to be past 20 or 30 minutes late, whatever our systems dictate, and work them in, because they've probably had to work really hard to get on that bus to come to your care. When you're in rural communities, if someone shows up late because they had to get a neighbor to drop them off and you have to stay 20 minutes extra, yeah, we all have families to get to, but just think about what that person had to go through to get to that appointment. Throughout this pandemic and the utilization of our mobile clinics, and our mobile clinics have been a lifesaver in the true sense of we have been able to capture individuals that have not just trusted our healthcare systems. I can remember one instance where we were in North Charleston, and there was a gentleman who was about 83 years old. He came with his son, who was about 57, and I couldn't figure out why they were just standing to the side. I eventually made my way over there, was able to strategically ask them questions, and identified that they both were illiterate, and they did not want to ask for help. After making them feel comfortable and reassuring them that we could assist, the case manager went over and she completed the paperwork with them. Both of them were able to be seen, and now they're a part of our medical outpatient care. So bringing them in for some outreach services was able to get them into permanent health care. So one day it was storming, and actually North Charleston Emergency Preparedness advised us to cancel our clinics, and we said no, we're going to go through with the clinic because we don't have enough time to get the notice out to the community that we're going to cancel. We went through with the clinic. Staff was drenched, the patients were getting wet. We were able to borrow a golf cart to try to transport some patients from the parking lot to the clinic. And people just came in and thanked us. They were very appreciative that we did not cancel, because a lot of them had taken public transportation, or they had a neighbor drop them off. We heard over and over and over again that the reason they came out is because they trust Federal Healthcare Network, and that they have been longtime users or very familiar with what was once known Franklin C. Veteran, had they not been referred by their provider of Federal Healthcare Network, or one of our pastors from one of our partnering churches, that they would not have come. And so what we've learned is, if people trust you, they're more apt to come out to your services. Also, you have to honor your commitment, and we committed to going into that community. Whether the weather was bad or not, we needed to fulfill that obligation. So I think it's important for us to get the message out that if you see one of these mobile units in the community, come up and ask questions. We can assist you because we take care of people regardless of their ability to pay. Do not allow your healthcare status or your income status to stop you from getting quality care.
So our ask this year remains the same. We want MUSC to fund 2 mobile health units for Federal Healthcare Network, costing only $850,000. FEDER already has a few mobile units in operation, but they need more to meet the growing need in the community. Our research has shown that these units are proven to bring much needed, accessible, affordable, and trustworthy primary care to even the most remote parts of the Lowcountry. Last June, in a meeting with CAGM and FEDER representatives, MUSC CEO Dr. Patrick Cawley committed to funding those mobile units. Just 1 month later, he stated that he had never made this commitment. A public hospital CEO going back on his commitment to fund a life-saving public health initiative and then lying about it? Let me ask you, is that right? MUSC has told us that they can't afford it, but they make millions every year. They're just choosing not to, and in choosing to instead spend money on spending their profits on buying up hospitals across the state in an effort to make more money. A public, nonprofit hospital that's more focused on corporate expansion and making money than meeting the needs of the community? Let me ask you again, is that right? MUSC has stated that they cannot legally fund our proposal. But last summer, their lawyers worked with FEDER to establish a legal working relationship that would allow them to legally fund the units. Intentionally using false statements to bring the feasibility of our ask into question. Let me ask you, is that right? No. So, at the Nehemiah Action, we will call MUSC CEOs, Dr. Patrick Cawley and Dr. David Zass, to do and honor their commitment to fund these mobile units. But neither Dr. Cawley nor Dr. Zass have responded to dozens of messages asking them to attend the Nehemiah Action. Is that right? No. So, we need you to take out your phones and send them a little email right now, asking them to attend. The information is on the screen behind me and beside me. But while we are still waiting for MUSC's officials to confirm their attendance to the action, I'm excited to announce that officials from Roper St. Francis will be in attendance. They reached out to us recently about our proposal and are interested in how they can do funding accessible, affordable, and trustworthy primary care is the difference between life and death. We need you to show up at the Nehemiah Action with at least 3 guests so that we can use our people power to hold MUSC accountable for helping people live. So I'm asking you to do
Good evening, everyone. My name's Peyton Tharp. I'm a member at Grace City Church, and although justice within the healthcare system is super important to me, I'm here to talk about something a little different. So I'm here to talk about flooding. So if you've lived in Charleston for any amount of time, you know that flooding has become a fact of life for many of Charleston's residents, myself included. About 2 years ago, my car got totaled a couple months after the pandemic started, and I had to buy a new car. Well, it wasn't new, it's old, but anyways. That being said, certain communities within Charleston are especially vulnerable to the impacts of flooding. Low-income, low-lying communities on the peninsula have witnessed an increase in flooding, yet they have received next to none of the protection plans that are promised to the wealthy. So while the city seeks to profit from tourism and a rapidly growing population, generations of poor stewardship has resulted in the natural beauty of our city being depleted, disregarded, and destroyed. Concrete fills what was once a thriving salt marsh. Paradise is being paved over for parking lots. Specifically, the Gadsden Green community, situated next to the historic Gadsden Creek, has experienced this firsthand. The creek has been integral to the historic Black community. Its waters were baptismal, a source of livelihood, a place of recreation and joy. But in the 1930s, many Black-owned homes were seized by the city, and the area was turned into a segregated public housing complex. Soon after, the city began dumping waste into the Gadsden Creek. The surrounding area then became a landfill. In 2012, former Mayor Joe Riley formed the Horizon Foundation, which later became West Edge. Since then, developers have collaborated with the city to bring in luxury condos and hotels, parking structures, high-end offices, and retail. So West Edge and the city claim that this development will provide benefits to the community, but let's be real. We know that they have a different type of community in mind. So to move forward with this development, West Edge has received a permit to fill in the last remaining acres of Gadsden Creek. Interestingly, Mayor Tecklenburg sits on the board of the West Edge Foundation to this day. Does that sound right to you? No. Didn't think so. So state and federal regulations prohibit the filling in of tidal creeks, for example, Gadsden Creek. So to advance their agenda, of squeezing every ounce of profit out of our land, West Edge and city officials are calling Gadsden Creek a ditch.
Wait a minute. Our elected officials don't know the difference between a creek and a ditch?
Even I know the difference between a creek and a ditch.
Right? Could a ditch be a nursery for shrimp, crabs, and oysters? Could a ditch be one of the most functional urban streams in the region? No, of course not. You see, water has memory. Filling in Gadsden Creek will not solve flooding in the area as the city proposes. While tidal flooding alone may decrease, low-lying areas are also where stormwater collects. If the water has nowhere to go due to all of the concrete, stormwater flooding will increase. The creek has tremendous storage potential for rainfall, which would be completely gone forever. We're not interested in our city officials playing word games so they can continue paving over paradise. It's time for them to do right.
When we have these tropical storms and stuff like that, my whole neighborhood gets flooded. When this flooding occurs, they block off my street to roll this big hose. And that hose actually takes the water that's on the crosstown off the crosstown and puts it inside the creek. So as they fill in the Gadsden Creek, my neighborhood, this housing development, and the houses around my neighborhood will all just be sitting in a bunch of water. I think revitalization, we would benefit from that. Make our stuff look just as well as Myrtle Bank Park or Colonial Lake. You know, they invested a lot of money in these places, and I feel they could do the same thing for this creek.
Hello, I'm Minister Rosalind Brown, and I attend Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church. I'm a native of Charleston, South Carolina, and when I was born, I lived on 89 Calhoun Street. As a young child, there were housing projects all in that area, and eventually the families that lived there, they were told that place had to be evacuated because the grounds were contaminated. But later, development took place. There's an aquarium and other development in that vicinity. When I moved on the west side of town, I attended Burke School. I lived on Fishburne Street. Coming up, I never knew this was even a creek here. When I was a child, I was told that this was a landfill and a dump. But as you can see now that there's development all around, and this is all that is left of the creek. Flooding is a major issue. It has always been a major issue. Now I've been told that development is wanting to take the last of what's left there of this creek. So I'm just wondering if the handwriting is on the wall. What happened on the east side, I'm thinking it's going to happen here. We need to fight to get this creek cleaned up, and that it's a vital part of this community.
My name is Sarah Mack, and I grew up on Gadsden Green Project here, on the corner of Norman and Bogart. When I grew up here, all of these housing on this side did not exist. And we were on the other side of this creek. And there was always flooding there, and when it really rise, it used to come over Haggard Avenue. So if they're proposing to build along this creek, where is the water going to go? They're already having flooding in these apartments over here, so therefore, shouldn't you alleviate the water problem before you try to build something here on the creek? So I'm not in agreement with the proposal as it stands right now, because we don't really know the impact of where all of this water is going to go. It floods here now, and it will continue to flood.
Hello, my name is Pam Brown, and I am happy to say that I was once a resident of this area that is referred to as Gadsden Green on Gadsden Creek. This area is on the west side of Charleston. We used to call it Back the Green, and I lived, if you can see, there are some projects over here. I lived at the end of the projects on Always Street. And I've learned recently that some developers are planning to fill in this area in order that they can build hotels and other high-rise buildings in this area. And I am adamantly opposed to this. Gadsden Creek is something that we as native Charlestonians who grew up on the west side treasure because it was part of our livelihood. This area itself was designed for the African American community. I used to attend Burke High School, and so what we used to do is we used to walk from our homes on Always Street to go across a field to get to Burke High School. And when it rained, it flooded so much that we would actually have to wade through the water in order to be able to move from Always Street to Fishburne Street, where Burke High School was located. This has always been a problem for us as African Americans here on the west side. So I'm saying this to let you know that there is going to be a tremendous impact to this community if the Gadsden Green Creek is filled in. This is very important to us, and this is another reason why I am really adamantly opposed to this development in this area.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Rutledge. I'm the senior pastor at Circular Congregational Church. I also serve on the Environmental Justice Steering Committee. I want what we want, to lift up the voices of the people and the earth. We live in one of the most beautiful places in the country. Our low country home fills us with senses of reverence, wonder, and awe. Who among us hasn't been astonished by the colors of a winter sunset, or by the smell of the jasmine when it blooms? Who hasn't picked greens from the soil or gone fishing in a tidal creek? Who hasn't sat beneath the branches of a live oak and felt a deep sense of gratitude for this place we call home? Yet our home is under threat. The proposal to fill in Gadsden Creek for expanded development not only destroys natural ecosystems, but also presses on multiple generations of wounds to the community surrounding the creek. Friends, we want to stop this from happening. The local grassroots community-led organization, Friends of Gadsden Creek, has carefully documented the painful history of this community and has put in years of tireless work to protect this vital wetland. So at this year's Nehemiah Action, we will be joining our people power with the Friends of Gadsden Creek and asking Mayor Tecklenburg to stop the filling of tidal wetlands, beginning with Gadsden Creek. Charleston prides itself on preserving the old and the historic, yet Gadsden Creek is the oldest living ecosystem on the peninsula. We want our city to protect and preserve these natural resources. We want the city to follow the advice of the Fish and Wildlife Service, the Department of Natural Resources, and the Dutch Dialogues, all of whom have warned us against the destruction of Gadsden Creek. We want Charleston to break the decades-long pattern of sidelining the Black community's concerns and choosing to listen to developers instead. That is why we will also be asking Mayor Tecklenburg not only to save the creek, but to restore it to health after years of neglect. Most importantly, we want to return to our senses of reverence, wonder, and awe. For it is a height of irreverence to look at Gadsden Creek and see a commodity that can be sold or an area that can be paved over. We want everybody to see the creek as the natural treasure that it is, a sacred place where the earth and water meet, and a place that provides a natural buffer in a time of flooding and sea level rise. We must save the creek and do right by our earth, by our neighbors with whom we share it, and by our children and our children's children, who will one day ask what we did when we had a chance to save our last tidal creek.
Good evening. I'm Elise Davis McFarland. I'm a team leader at Mars Street Baptist Church, and for the past 2 years, co-chair of CAJM's Education Committee. To me, education is a right that should be extended to all children under circumstances that ensure their best academic and personal development. That is why I will be leading the negotiations for education.
Good evening. I am the Reverend Dr. Brian C. Henderson, and I am the pastor of St. James Presbyterian Church on the lovely James Island. I am married to an educator, and so I know the power of education. Not only because I have been educated, but she educates me every day. I do believe also that education is the key to a thriving economy, the key to a better community, and the key to a city that attracts businesses and people to come and live their best lives. And so I will be serving as the assistant negotiator for the education issue.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Claire Curtis, and I'm a member of Kahal Kadosh Beth Elohim. You should know my face by now. I began this housing journey with you back in 2017. I am one of the co-chairs of the Housing Committee, and I am leading the housing negotiations.
I am Reverend Charles Hayward, the pastor of the Edisto Presbyterian Church on the lovely Edisto Island. I have been working with this housing work for some time, and I want to say to you that I intend to be pushing. Why? Because there's no greater stability than making sure that you have a roof over your head. And so I'll be working and pushing until we can see Charleston County put shovel in ground to open up the soil to construct the first affordable home. I will be backing up Dr. Curtis.
Good evening again. My name is Byron Benton, pastor of Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church. I have an energetic congregation full of lovely people. Once again, I will be leading negotiations with our healthcare initiative, and I'm expecting a big night. And so the bigger the crowd, the bigger the night. Therefore, we want to encourage you to bring your three. Somebody say, bring my three.
Bring my three.
So that all can witness the impact and the power that happens when we show our collective power. So, one, bring those three people to be a witness, and two, make sure that that power is heard all the way in Rutledge Tower.
Preach. My name's Julia Eichelberger, and I'm a member of First Scots Presbyterian Church, and I am so proud to be backing up Reverend Benton in our healthcare negotiations.
everyone. My name is Cindy Gonzalez. I'm a senior at the College of Charleston, and I have been working on this issue for a really long time, and I am so glad that CAGM has decided to make environmental justice something that they want to work on, because people like me and younger are going to be the ones facing the climate crisis. And so I joined the steering committee, and I am super excited to be leading the negotiations at the Need My Action.
Good evening. My name is Arthur McFarland. I'm a team leader at St. Patrick Catholic Church. I grew up in Charleston, and today I am a practicing attorney in Charleston. And part of my mission is to help Black families in the region retain ownership of property that has been in the family for generations. And so, Gadsden Creek is a piece of property that certainly resides within the memories and experiences of so many Black families. So I am really excited about being the backup negotiator for Cindy Gonzalez, okay? And look forward to it. Thank you.
As we work together to gain commitments from our officials, we must remember that these asks will literally save lives in our community. We must also remember that CAGM has never intended to be a voice for the voiceless. Our mission is to build power so that those directly impacted by the problems can finally have a seat at the table to be heard.
For a long time, decisions have been made for us. When we negotiate, however, publicly and out in the open, those of us directly impacted by these injustices are present in the room to help shape the decisions that impact us.
We must remember that our public officials engage in tough negotiations all the time, behind closed doors. Tonight, we throw open those doors to the entire community. We ask for what we need, and what we need is always within the power of our public officials to grant. We work our hardest to get a clear yes. We will clarify what answers we are given to ensure that everyone understands what is or is not being committed to. We continue to grow and learn in this process.
And we'll have a simple rule for all the follow. I'll need for you to be silent as you listen carefully to what is said. Why? Sometimes it may seem as if we've gotten a yes, but that may not be the case. There is a leader, there'll be a leader on stage that will help you to know when to applaud the yes and when to be silent when we've gotten a no. Remember this, there is power in your silence.
Our backup negotiators will be listening carefully to what is said and helping to clarify where needed. If our lead negotiators are silent, we are all silent. If they ask us to respond, then we all respond. If at any point we get stuck in negotiation, we will call a caucus with our steering committee, those involved in research, who best know the issues to give feedback on how to proceed.
There are no surprises. All of our officials received questions in advance. They will be informed of the evening's format. Remember, too, that the format for the action is similar to the format of many county council meetings and board meetings. At county council meetings, when a vote is cast, members get to say yes or no. They do not vote maybes. The questions we ask can be answered with a yes or a no.
It is our meeting, so we will control the microphone, and we will set time limits to follow our carefully planned agenda. After they are asked a question, our officials will respond with a yes or no. Sorry, guys. and have 30 seconds to explain. If they say no, then we will begin the process of clarifying and negotiating to get a yes.
Now, y'all know that we've been silent about these problems for far too long. And so tonight, let us embrace the power of our unified voices and leave here one step closer to building a community where justice and equity will prevail.
Hey, Luann.
Hi.
I would like to share my excitement and our excitement about our action coming up on April 4th. Before we do that, though, if you haven't, please check in so your presence is known here tonight and you can be counted. You can do that by going to the website, scanning the QR code, or by calling the number given. It's all up there. Now back to the action. As you know, it's being held outdoors at the new CCSD District 4 Stadium. The stadium is located at the intersection of Montague Avenue and I-526 near the Coliseum. There is plenty of, guess what, free parking.
I know, I've heard that it's a beautiful facility that holds 6,000 people. So we'll have plenty of room for social distancing, and we also will be requiring masks, making the event as safe as possible. If you don't have a mask, no worries, as Cajun will have KN95 masks at the entrance, just as we did tonight.
We'll have a huge stage set up on the field where all the negotiations will take place. But don't feel like you need to bring your binoculars or zoom in on your iPhone. Regardless of where you are sitting, you'll be able to see and hear everything due to a state-of-the-art sound system and large digital screen at the end of the field.
We're also going to have snacks for kids. But if you want, you can even bring a picnic dinner with you to eat in the stands. Or for greater comfort, bring your own lawn chairs and sit on the field.
So wait, Luann, you know, we want justice to roll down, but what happens if H2O begins to roll down from the clouds? Does that mean that the justice warriors will get all wet?
Well, we shouldn't mind if we get wet, but no one's going to get wet. We have a backup plan. If rain is predicted, we'll decide by early afternoon as to staying at the stadium or moving the event indoors. If we do have to move indoors, only the key people will be able to attend in person. That's going to be our negotiators, our steering committee, board, officials, and organizers. Everyone else will be able to view it on Zoom. You will receive a text or an email in the early afternoon with a link for viewing.
So that's everything. Everything you need to know about our 10th annual action. We really hope for beautiful weather, but regardless of what the conditions are, we are going to gather and do
just
on April 4th. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Eugene Richardson. I am the pastor of St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. This is rally number 10. Let's hear some celebration for a decade worth of doing justice together. Now turn to someone near you and say, I may not. Go now, turn to a neighbor and say, I may not be getting any younger, but I am getting better. at demanding justice for my city. Look around the room. You are the foundation of this work. We have 900 network members between 40 congregations. Can you believe that 900 people in a county of over 400,000 people have caused this much ruckus for justice? We have shown during a time of great division that you can build powerful unity if you just do right. It isn't rocket science, just do right. It doesn't take a doctoral degree to just do right. And if we're going to continue over the next 10 years pressing for an even greater degree of justice for our city, we are going to need all 900 of you all on year 10. All in on year 10. When you hear me say all in on year, then I want you to holler 10. Let's try it. All in on year, all in on year, all in on year. What does that mean? It means you show up at the meetings you're supposed to show up at. It means you bring 3 people with you to the Nehemiah Action on April 4th. It means you invest something meaningful into this work. So tonight, we have a couple of people taking investments by credit card, debit cards. You can also see in your agenda how you can invest in this work. You can also text and invest by texting the number 843-417-0720. If we're going to get our officials to do right, we must all be in on year 10. All in on year 10.
Good evening. My name is Betty Neerman, and I'm a team leader at St. John Catholic. I'm here tonight to give instruction for our caucuses. The first thing I want you to hear is that while this is caucus time, you will be caucusing from your seat. This is called the social distance caucus. Now, everyone in this room should have received a network member reporting form tonight with your agenda. Can you hold your form up? Did y'all find your form? Okay. Every person in this room needs to fill this sheet out and then give this sheet to your team leader. If your team leader is not here tonight, turn your form into another team leader. Who fills out this sheet? Everyone. We will have 20 minutes to caucus. We may shorten that up a little bit. We're running a little behind. Give your fully filled out sheet to your team leaders. Team leaders fill out your reporting form and turn it into your captain. Captain takes these forms and fill out your sheet. When you have tallied up all your confirmed people for the action, take your Sharpie and write that number real big on the foam board with your congregation's name on it and hold it up. They're on the end of the aisles. Once you have filled out your reporting form, you will also have a chance to make an investment tonight. Our goal is to raise $215,000 in personal investments this year. I'm investing $1,200 in Cajun this year because I believe in what we are doing. The only way we will hit our goal is if we are all in on year 10. All in on year 10. A meaningful investment is different for every person, but our goal is to have every member of our ministry investing something. For anyone making an investment in the Justice Ministry tonight, you can give your team leaders cash or check. You can also pay by Cash App or through our website. You can also text to give. All of this information is in your agenda and on the slide. Team leaders, on your reporting form, you must mark how the investment is made. It gets very confusing for staff if you don't mark how that investment was made. Put everything, cash investments, checks, reporting forms, all back in the manila envelope to be turned in. Be sure to write the name of the network member and investment amount on your team leader form. If you would like to make a payment by credit card tonight, you can locate the green balloons in the sanctuary and make payments there. They'll show up. Oh, they're in the back. Now, I know some of y'all are thinking you can leave about now, and we have a new congregation joining tonight. so stick around to show your support. And with that, begin filling out your forms. Welcome back, everyone. Hello. Y'all want to go home tonight? How did you like our social distance caucus? Glad you liked it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work well with counting people committed to attend. We have some work to do. Last year, we engaged 2,402 people at our action, so we know it's possible. Recently, CAJM staff made phone calls to many of you for an environmental justice full committee meeting, and we went from a meeting of 15 people to a meeting of 52 people. So we know that phone calls work. So when I say, what's it going to take to hit our goal? I'm going to say phone, and you say calls. Phone, phone, phone. We know that by getting our friends, family, accountants, hairstylists, nail technicians, barbers, mailmen and women, you get the idea. By getting our community out on April 4th, we have the power to shift public opinion toward the common good. We have the power to build the public. We have the power to build the public will necessary to do in our community. I look forward to seeing you all in person on April 4th, where our presence has the power to bring millions of dollars of funding for housing, mobile health clinics, practices in our schools that build relationships, and the saving of a creek in a community that has suffered years of environmental racism. So make your calls and bring your three. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Well, CAJM family, I have some exciting news for you tonight. We are growing. Last year, we celebrated a huge milestone, 40 CAJM congregations, including our first member congregation in Mount Pleasant. This year, we're celebrating another milestone. We are now officially bringing our fight for a more just and equitable community past Charleston County and into Berkeley County. Yeah. We have our 41st member congregation and first member congregation in Berkeley County, St. Paul Baptist Church. Woo! Is Reverend Hopkins here? Yay, come on up, Reverend Hopkins. Come on up. We're going to be spreading our power. And your church is going to help us. Reverend Hopkins, as a reminder, coveted member congregations agree to do the following. Build a justice ministry network in your congregation. Participate in our annual cycle, which includes the listening process, the research to action process, and the investment drive. Accept responsibility for the financial health of CAJM and by supporting our fundraising efforts. You're going to be a voice that will share the concerns of your congregation's members during our assemblies and support the organization's agreed upon goals. And you're going to select a leader to serve on our CAJM board. So do you agree to this covenant?
Yes, we do.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Reverend Hopkins. Great. St. Paul Baptist Church. our 41st congregation. Welcome to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome, St. Paul's. It's awesome. I'm Reverend Ryan Lyles. I'm pastor of Lutheran Church of the Redeemer in West Ashley, and I'll leave you with these words tonight. Before I do, see Rainique at the back. We need 50 volunteers for Nehemiah Action. So I think she's in the back by the balloons. Sign up to help. We've heard so many things that are good tonight. A call to do and to be all in on year 10. And if that wasn't enough, I'm going to leave you with 3 more words. There is a refrain throughout the Holy Scriptures that we hear over and over with people like Philip and Nathaniel and our tradition and Jesus. And we hear these words, and it's 3 words. It's come and see. Come and see. When we don't have words to explain every bullet point to every issue that we're talking about, but we're called to invite our neighbor to be a part of the people power for the Nehemiah Action. Maybe all we need to say is bring our 3, come and see. Come and see. Come and see what will happen when people gather under a banner of restorative justice and sacrificial love. Come and see what will happen when people gather and fill out that stadium where our leaders are held accountable and where we're called to continue to be the people that we were meant to be, people of justice and grace and action and love. Bring your 3, come and see. It is time to do right, and may God be with us until we meet again. Good night.
Bring 3 people with you. Bring 3 people with you. Bring 3 people with you. Bring 3 people with you to the Nehemiah Action on April 4th.